lesson from my most painful regret. That's the topic of today's video, and I'm going to show you how it led me to the values that I hold now and how I live my life today. Okay, like I think basically all the content I put out, it's there for the younger Mark. If I could go back in time and send him stuff, it'd be stuff like this as well. I'd be sending him not just content around getting back his physical freedom. So I think this is a good point because everyone has regrets, but not everyone really delves into them enough to actually pull out some insights and pull out, indications of what their values in life actually are, so that they can live more in accordance with them. So that's what we're really going to get out of today. You'll be able to look back at regrets in your life, try and turn it into the biggest lesson then by delving into them and seeing what values do you really hold, and I'll show you the process of doing that. So I guess to start off, I'll talk through my own, give you the context for it. So one of my biggest regrets is not making it as a professional soccer player. Okay, so again, I suppose most people watching this won't know a lot of my background and stuff like that, but yeah, soccer was my life, I'd say from, 3, 4 up until maybe 18, something like that. I was playing soccer all the time, loved it, but I won't go through the whole story. In the description you're going to see there's a newsletter there when I talk through all this in detail, so go into the newsletter and read that if you want the full story. But the quick recap, pretty good soccer player for my area. I'm from Roscommon, and I got to Ireland trials level. Then from there I didn't make the Irish team. I think, what was that, maybe under 14, under 15. I was put onto the Connacht squad, you could call it that. They're called the Emerging Talent Programs. It's basically like the Connacht Leinster, kind of split up into different areas. So I was the only one there from Roscommon, with Galway, Sligo, Mayo lads as well, who were kind of just under, and even some of them were actually in the Irish squad at the time. So I was on that for 2 years, never actually got picked. They would have picked maybe 5 or 6 people from that team to play for Ireland, maybe every 3-6 months. And yeah, that's pretty much it then. Went on to play for Longford and what else? A Derby County scout was meant to come watch me for one game, never came in the end. My mum never told me till years later. She didn't want to make me nervous for the match. And that was pretty much it then. Yeah, college came along, did what most people do. Went at the crack in college, went drinking, soccer dream was over. So then I was kind of thinking like, I didn't really give that my full effort. My mindset was so different back then. It was kind of like, you're good enough or you're not good enough. It wouldn't be the mindset I have now that, we can play the long game, chase small gains, work on things, improve, and kind of start bridging the gap between the people that are ahead of you. So I did say that I would defer the final year of college. Yeah, I was telling people that, telling my close friends that I was going to defer the final year in college to go over to England and just start playing for local teams and, go to trials that are on and just give it one last proper whack and stay there for a year or two and then kind of come back and be like, look, gave it my all. If it didn't work out, it didn't work out. And then I never did. So I'm a lot different now than I was back then. Be a man of my word now. If I say something, I'm going to do it. The distance between what I say and what I do is very small. Okay, and I think that's where, well, certainly in my own experience, that's where your confidence comes from. If you're saying loads of stuff and then you're only acting down here, you're not doing half the stuff you're saying, it's bridging the gap between your own word, your own trust with yourself, and your confidence is just going to erode the bigger that gap gets. So it was full of shit, basically. It was full of air. Like I said, I was going to do this, I was going to go to England, blah, 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 blah. Ultimately, didn't do anything about it, and then went into final year of college and just went drinking and stuff in college again. So, I didn't think it was a big deal, or I didn't think it actually affected me that much until years later. This is kind of how it goes. The regrets, we avoid them. Like, it would be too painful to go into them at the time to kind of just fully accept that, look, didn't make it in soccer, but not only that, I didn't try as hard as I could have. I gave up on it. I settled. You could say that I settled. I gave up on it. Didn't give it the full whack. So yeah, I just went on, and it was only, would have been 3, 4, 5 years later. Can't remember the timelines. Doesn't really matter. But it was only when I was in the airport one day. I think I was going on holidays, and I was there with my girlfriend at the time, just getting a meal before we were heading off. And there was a soccer match on TV, and I think I must have saw somebody I played with playing on TV, and I hadn't watched soccer anymore. I suppose I didn't really realise I fell out of love with soccer. Yeah, that was true as well, but also, looking back, I'm sure I didn't like what was reflected back at me whenever I watched soccer again. That would remind me that, oh, I give up on the dream, I didn't even try, as hard as I could have and all that stuff. So I'm sure that's part of why I fell away from watching soccer as well. But in the airport here, soccer match was on, ended up watching it. I think I saw someone I used to play with, living the dream, essentially. They're a professional soccer player on TV. And I was just, I felt like embarrassed, I felt ashamed, I felt guilt, I just felt upset. I was just hit with a wave of emotions. I got completely overwhelmed, to be honest, and didn't know what was happening. And I just went really quiet and nearly kind of on the verge of tears. And like, my girlfriend was kind of like, "You okay? Like, what's wrong?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." If I said anything else, I would have burst out into tears, basically. So, after that, I was like, what the hell happened there? And then I'll be a lot more self-aware now. I know myself a lot more. But when I delved into all that, you can see the deeper kind of reasons behind it and the things that are actually upsetting you. Like, for me, it wasn't that I didn't make it as a soccer player. It was actually the if you dig deeper than that I settled, I gave up on it. I didn't, kind of live it true to myself and give it my best effort, regardless of the outcome. Because that's what would have made me proud. I was ashamed of myself. I wasn't happy with myself. I wasn't proud of myself, and then I just ran away from it. And that's what humans do. We run away from pain and we run towards pleasure. That's what we're naturally inclined to do. So I would have just avoided that and never really delved enough into it to kind of learn that lesson. So the biggest insight, one of my biggest life lessons that came from that, it's kind of two things here. Like, one of them was, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you settle for. Okay, so that was a huge one for me. Like, obviously, to be a soccer player, what's the stats? I don't know. Was it less than 1%? Probably make it as professional soccer players. But that really hit home that, like, look, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you settle for. Like, nothing's going to be handed to you, It's not going to arrive like a fucking Amazon Prime delivery on your doorstep. Like, you need to go out, you need to get after it, you need to, commit to things, give it your all as a bare minimum, and that's what I didn't do. So that kind of mindset then, like, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you settle for, that stuck with me then through the rest of my life up to here, and it changed how I acted, because I didn't want to feel like that again. I never wanted to feel like ashamed, embarrassed, just upset with myself because I didn't give it my all. So, like, that's kind of flipped now, and the way I've approached things is, I'll give it my all, I'll give it everything, then the outcome doesn't matter. It was never about the outcome. It was about me being proud of myself, and to be proud of myself, that's what I need to do. Like, think of movies. Who are we proud of in the movies? We're proud of the guys that, goes out in their shield on the fucking battlefield, and just giving it their all and living true to themselves. If he loses the battle, he wins. You don't really care, or at least for me, like, you're just proud and inspired by the person that's going after it and not living out of fear. So that's the kind of point I realized as well, is that there's two ways to live your life. You can live out of fear, or you can live out of your values. Okay, so that's two ways to live. You can live out of fear, you can live out of your values. Majority of people in this world live out of fear. Same as me in that example, fear of going to England and failing. There you go. That was the main reason I didn't do it. Fear, like, stepping outside the comfort zone. So yeah, that was it. Don't get what you deserve, you get what you settle for. That kind of mindset then is what got me out of 10 years of chronic pains and injuries and not giving up on it, even though all the experts were telling me to settle, all this kind of stuff. So if I didn't have that experience before of understanding what it feels like to not live true to myself and follow things through, that's what helped me not give up on this. And then to chase after elite, like, mobility and strength goals, things like getting the front splits when I told it was impossible for me, doing handstand push-ups. I'm close to one arm chin up now. I've ended up doing some mad shit, like I ran a untrained marathon in barefoot shoes, coming from being told my body's fucked, a couple of years before that, so just through doing these things, it's really just showed me that, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you settle for. That's kind of my ground zero that I keep coming back to. Even this, like, grew a coaching business from nothing, 3 years ago, no qualifications, no experience in it, and now that's my career. So same thing again, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you settle for. You need to go out and make it happen. So that was the biggest lesson. The other side of it then was, just like I'm saying about these values, which we're going to get into now, I understood that the pain was actually pointing me towards my values, and I was in pain because I was acting against them. So I didn't even know what values were, that people have different values, and to live a good life, you need to follow your own values, or you're not going to be happy with yourself. So through that, I learned that integrity was my number one value. That's what I learned from that experience. That integrity, you could say, living a life true to yourself. That's my biggest value, and I can't escape it. I can't get away from it. That I know deep down, when I look through all the fear, you want to live a life true to yourself, not giving a shit what other people think. Follow what you believe in, follow what you want to do, and that's it. Then who gives a shit about the outcome? Regardless of the outcome, I'm proud of myself, I'm happy with myself, I'm at peace with myself. And that's the way my life is now. Like the last 5 years, never been happier, more at peace with myself, or have as much passion and enjoyment for my life than I ever did. So that was huge for me, and it pointed me towards lots of other values as well. Things like discipline and courage, and like all these other things that that I really admire in other people but never did myself. So that's another little trick. If you're like, don't know what my values are, a little quick kind of hack there is, what do you admire in other people? That's showing you what you value. Like, being in awe of someone else, being inspired by them, awe is an invitation to imitate. You're seeing something in them that you would like more of in yourself, and that's why you gravitate towards them. That's why certain people are inspired by different things. Maybe someone now is a bit inspired by my story, and maybe then integrity is probably something that you value as well, like living a life true to yourself and just going after what you want and not being afraid of failure. So yeah, that they were the kind of two big lessons that I learned, that you don't get what you deserve, you get what you settle for. And then really understanding what my values were, because once I understood them, then I could start living in accordance with them going forward. So I'm going to give you 3 takeaways then that you can do on this. I want to put in some actionable takeaways that you can do. So first one, again, if we're trying to turn our biggest regret into our biggest life lesson and try to find out what values we hold so that we can act in accordance with them going forward to have a better life. First one, you need to delve into the regrets. Okay, so not easy. Most people avoid it. This is the tough part. But journal on them, talk to a friend about them, talk to anyone about them. You need to talk to them, delve into them. It's going to be painful. There'll be tears. You need to go through this process. And then the point I down there in the newsletter was, we need to start looking inside to solve rather than outside to blame. You can blame all you want. I've been there. We've all been there. I didn't make it because of X, Y, Z, or I couldn't do this because of them. But ask yourself this question: when has that thinking ever helped you? There's your answer. It's never helped me. It doesn't help anyone. So again, instead of looking outside to blame, look inside to solve. That's when you're going to get towards the truth and towards things that are actually going to help you in your life. So yeah, that's it. Look, you need to dig deep and identify what the actual regret was. So that's the big point here, because on the surface level with me, if I didn't dig in deep and tell you my realizations there, you'd think, his regret was he failed as a soccer player. That's not the regret. That's only the surface level. The regret was digging deeper. Integrity. I know who I want to be, the life I want to live, and I didn't act in accordance with that. I gave up on it. I gave up on something that I wanted to follow. So if I just followed it through to the end and then didn't make it, I wouldn't have that regret. You see, so the regret isn't about the outcome, and that's how I live my life now. Mobility goals, strength goals, business goals, all this stuff. The outcome doesn't actually fucking matter. That's what lets me do it. I'm like, I'm living true to my values, the life I want to live, putting out the change I'm trying to see in the world. I'm happy either way now. So that's the first point. Second point, is to identify the hidden values. That's kind of what I was saying there, but like to help you a little bit more with this, sometimes the values, they won't be conscious, they'll be unconscious. Simple example here, you lie to someone, you feel like shit. That's your subconscious, your unconscious telling you that you value honesty. And that's why you're feeling the pain, because you value honesty. You haven't acted with the value of honesty, and that's why you're getting the friction then between the conscious and the subconscious. So you can think back on different regrets and you'll start to kind of delve deeper into them. And then, as I said in the newsletter, from the ashes of regret, the values will rise like a phoenix. It'll take a bit of time, okay? It'll take a bit of time, but that's what's going to happen once you really delve into it deep. So, then I went through that. That's how I pulled out that the biggest value for me was integrity, and that's been number one, and that's how I've lived the last 5-6 years, regardless of the outcome. Outcome doesn't matter to me. And then the third point, yeah, so to integrate and cultivate these values into your life. So look, that's pretty straightforward enough. There's a few more points on that in the newsletter as well. But yeah, it's basically, you're just taking them from your subconscious up into conscious awareness. And now the choice is yours. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy just because, let's say you figure out, we'll just use my example, like just when I figured out, oh, yeah, integrity is a huge value for me. Cool, I'll just live with integrity and be true to myself. Is it just a switch you flip? No. I used to be so shy, so embarrassed, like thinking now that I'm putting out content to the world, no chance would I do that years ago, so yeah, it's taking small gains, small improvements. That's why I keep banging on about that on Instagram with my training. You see good weeks, bad weeks, then small gains here, small gains there. Any big gain is just an accumulation of small gains. Same for me in overcoming shyness, being embarrassed, all this, getting more confident, improving mobility, improving strength, improving anything. That's humans. That's how humans work. We adapt slowly and get better at things. There's no other way around it, for strength, for business, for mindset, for anything. So I don't look at that as a bad thing. I look at it as an empowering thing. You can basically get better at whatever the hell you want over time. So there you go. And yeah, for this, it's going to be, you've identified the values from the first 2 points. Now it's going to be starting to consciously choose acting out of your value. So we've gone from the macro down to the micro. This will be day-to-day decisions once you've got to this point, in the day you're living, in conversation you're having with people, in actions in your life. Notice that you're making ones out of fear. Come back away from that. Start making choices out of value and start seeing how you feel. Simple example, social situation. Oh, you're coming out this weekend. Fear of being judged, fear of not being one of the lads. You don't want to go out. Oh yeah, see you there. Fuck that. Just say you don't want to go out and you want to do something else. Go for it. Your job, you've had this passion for ages that you want to start pursuing and building a side project, but fear of failing, fear of what your parents will think, fear of this, fear of that, you don't do it. Fuck that. Start it. Why not? Don't be on your deathbed with regrets. That's why most people will have the value of integrity, because from the book Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, the biggest regret on people's deathbed is not living a life true to myself. That's number one regret for most people in the world, is not living a life true to themselves. So you need to remind yourself of that stuff in the moment and think, when I'm on my deathbed, I won't be like, oh, I'm glad I played it safe. I'm glad that, you're not. You're just going to be eaten up, like I was in that moment in the airport. You're going to feel like shit, and you're going to be eaten up inside about not making the decision that you wanted to make, the one that would have made you proud of yourself. You just gave into fear. So that's pretty much it. Look, there's 3 actionable points on trying to turn some of the biggest regrets into your life into some of the biggest life lessons. It can turn into the catalyst to change your life. That's what it did for me. And that's what I think back to sometimes when I was riding through that. I was like, it was obviously a very painful moment, but if I didn't have that big regret and learn all I needed to learn, you wouldn't be watching this now. I probably wouldn't be a coach. I'd probably have stayed in my 9-to-5 job, and then when the decision came to not give up on trying to get back my physical freedom, maybe I would have given up on that. And maybe that would be the regret that I'd only be talking about in my 40s. So look, you can turn them into something good is what I'm saying. You can flip it on its head, turn it into something good that's going to change the way that you're acting for the rest of your life. Okay, so I'm going to leave that one there. If you want more kind of info on that, on my story, the regret and everything else, go into the description, click on the newsletter, and if you like the newsletter, just sign up at the bottom. You get it for free. Going to be doing them every week on different topics around getting back physical freedom, like a resilient body, anti-fragile mindset, and then building an authentic life as well. So you could say this one's kind of going down to the authentic life. So we'll leave it there. Until next time, don't settle, and we'll chat to you in the next video.